You and every other Magic player need to stop talking about how much cards cost in Commander. Yes, some cards are very expensive. I agree. Nobody is expecting that a brand new player, even a player with years under their belt, is investing in hundreds to $1,000 in cards just to have in their 99. But you know what any player absolutely does have the right and absolute ability to do, regardless of how long it would take them? They can save money and purchase an expensive card that matters to them because it's a non-rotating format. It doesn't matter how long it takes for them to afford that card, they can still use it, and not only can they use it, they will own it, and they don't have to buy it again. It's in your collection. There is no money barrier to Commander. There's no such thing as a money barrier in a non-rotating format. You might need to invest more time, and if you're complaining that people can't immediately come out the gate with $8,000 decks in their first month to play and just slay tables, well, that's silly to complain about, and detrimental to the community. Everybody needs to stop worrying about costs. You want to worry about cost? Worry about it in a rotating format, where you have a limited amount of time to get a hold of those cards where they're usable. That's a barrier to entry, not the gibberish that you guys are all talking about. And I have EDH decks and fringe EDH decks that are approaching CDH and don't require an investment of thousands of dollars. I have a collection at home of singles with a value of $7 grand, and the majority of those cards are 6-penny cards that may never see play. Until they do, there is no money barrier to the entry of Commander. You guys are making that up. I am a father of 2 who works for a living, pays all my own bills. I still manage to afford this hobby on my own wages. Nobody subsidizes my EDH play, so it is 100% attainable. The only thing that needs to change is, instead of crying about the cost of a card increase your commitment to the game. I just bounced it out for you, and you're welcome. But by the way, I do love your channel, and I'm loving this video, and that was actually my only gripe, and it's a personal gripe, not with you at all. You're amazing, but with the game and the community as a whole, I will be watching more of your videos. I really enjoy the things you have to say. Thank you so much for your time and your effort you've put into this video, and thank you for giving me a place to air out my feelings on the game. Well, that was a mouthful, and I'm gonna go ahead and say, while I understand the feeling of this particular individual, I disagree with it very, very much, and it's actually the entire reason why I even made this channel in the first place. Not only did I want to talk about Magic the Gathering, which is one of my favorite hobbies to engage in, like, it's fun to go out and hang out with friends and spend time doing something that you enjoy. Like, that's just a great thing to do, you know? But one of the reasons that I made the $15 challenge was because there are a lot of people who start the game and want to be able to play with their friends and are not actually able to play with them at the same level for a decent bit of time, and they feel like they need those expensive cards. Now, I do want to say as well, to try to argue that you shouldn't complain about prices of cards in non-rotating formats, I disagree with entirely. There is no format in Magic the Gathering that has rotation anymore. There just isn't one. Rotation for the standard format has been extended to 3 years, and in paper, people aren't really playing the standard format. That's not really something people are doing that much anymore. If you've got a place near you that is having a very, very comfortable, like, you know, 8 to 32-ish range amount of standard players, then I am ridiculously happy for you, and I kind of wish we had that where I am, but unfortunately we don't really. And I'm also going to talk about some non-rotating formats that have a barrier to entry that's way too high. And it's not about people being able to come into the game and slay everybody that they can. It's about all the players in the game being able to play on somewhat even footing. In Commander, Rule 0 is a way to facilitate that, but I personally think that it's easier to facilitate that just by building better decks. I think that helps a lot more than a Rule 0 conversation that nobody actually knows how to navigate. But let's talk about Magic the Gathering prices on the whole real quick. Let's start real quick with a rotating format. Again, ostensibly a rotating format. Standard. How much does it cost to get into Standard? Well, if you want to play Esper mid-range, it'll cost you about $511. Now, are you going to get as much fun? and as much play out of that standard deck as you might out of, say, a PlayStation 5 or a new Xbox or a new Nintendo Switch. Hell, you could buy 2 Nintendo Switches with that price. I don't know. Which one of those is more worth it to you? And don't get me wrong, this is a problem that is halfway constructed by the players, but it's primarily constructed by Wizards of the Coast. After all, they control the rarities and the frequency at which cards are printed, and most importantly, they control the price of sealed product, which all is a factor in how much it costs to get into the game. And there's a very easy way they can solve this problem that I'll get to in a bit. Esper mid-range is going to run you 411. Dimir mid-range is going to run you about 455. Azorius Control actually runs you 310. That's a steal. Boros Convoke. Boros decks always cost less, but, 277. Domain, $500. Golgari mid-range, my pride and joy, $500. Mono Red Aggro, the budget option to get into basically any format, or aggro really is the budget option for most formats. Mono Red Aggro's got a $100 price tag. You might be able to actually manage in there. So your entry points, if you don't want to spend a ludicrous amount of money, are Mono Red Aggro and Gruul Aggro. But let's move to a non-rotating format, the formats that we're not allowed to complain about. Apparently. Let's go ahead and head over to Pioneer, one of my preferred formats to play. Would you like to play Is It Phoenix, currently the top deck in the format? That's going to run you $320. And there's a reason it's going to run you $320 versus some of the higher prices in here, and that's because Wizards of the Coast, a few years ago, actually made an Is It Phoenix precon. So the most expensive cards to get in the Is It Phoenix deck are going to be your Ledger Shredders and your sideboard. Your Phoenixes come into the deck, your Ops and everything else all come in the precon. It's one of the only examples I get to say where that is true. Rakdos mid-range is going to cost you $600. Most of that's going to be in Sheoldred. Rakdos Vampires is going to cost you $750 now that Vein Ripper is a thing. Move into Azorius Control, $393, with a chunk of that being on your Emperors. Abzan Amalia combo, that's going to run you about almost $500, with Mono Black Discard running you $500. Niv to Light, that combo deck, is going to run you about $500. And of course, Boros Convoke and Boros Aggro running you $200 each as some budget options to get in. I adore Pioneer. It is one of my favorite formats to play. There is no doubt about it. I like playing my Days Undoing deck, and I like playing my Golgari mid-range deck, and the format is paced at a very, very reasonable way. But how do you get somebody into it? Well, I can tell you how I got my friends into it. Very, very easy. I handed one of them a Gruul Aggro deck that was a precon, and the other one a Humans deck that was a precon. Those precons being about $50 on the shelf, a little overpriced in my opinion, but those precons existing and having a Shockland in them each made them kind of a no-brainer of a sell to get somebody into a new format. Now, how would I get somebody into Pioneer right now? That's a very good question. I have no idea how I would do it. How do you convince somebody to play a game that has fewer players, because everybody plays Commander? How do you convince somebody to play a game that has fewer players with a higher barrier to entry and less opportunities to play? Because if I go into any card shop around the Atlanta region, for instance, or really this works anywhere in the United States. I've done this in Tennessee, I've done this in Chicago, I've done this in New York, I've done this in Philadelphia, I've done this in Boston, I've done this over on the East Coast as well. So, or over on the West Coast as well. If you go into any Magic the Gathering store, anyone at all, I've done this in Florida too, pretty much everywhere on the East Coast I've done this, you walk in with a Commander deck and you're gonna find a game. You walk in with a Standard, a Pioneer, or a Modern deck, and you're gonna have people asking you if there are actually other formats to Magic the Gathering. And this isn't just a problem with Magic having multiple formats. Again, it used to be that people carried multiple decks for multiple formats on the regular because they had their Type 1 deck, they had an extended deck if they'd been around for a long time, they had a Type 2 deck, and then they would have an EDH deck because we hadn't quite got to the point of calling it Commander back then. And it was pretty much easy to find a game for multiple formats of Magic, but now it's basically just Commander. So how do you convince somebody to spend more money getting into a game Because, again, I can take a $15 Commander deck and I can run into a tournament and show people some hands. That ain't a hard thing to do. And there are people who are watching me that are actually people who go to my LGS and can attest that, yeah, if I pull out $15 Sephiroth, people at the table are gonna sigh, right? It's not rocket science. But again, on the flip side, when I can hand somebody a Magic the Gathering deck for Commander that is twice as many cards in the deck and a tenth of the cost, what is the incentive to play other formats? And as somebody that wants to grind these other competitive formats and doesn't want to be stuck playing on Magic Arena or Moto, where it feels like I'm either fighting a system that's broken, because Moto is absolutely garbage, or I'm fighting on Magic the Gathering Arena, dealing with people playing with the rope all day, I'd like to play with real flesh and blood people. Which brings me to Modern. How in the hell do you get somebody to start playing Modern? How? I want to know. How do you convince somebody that this format is worth it for them? Because I don't know how you do it. I play Hardened Scales. You know how I built Hardened Scales? A way that I can't expect anybody else to do. I bought one card every month until I had all the expensive cards in the deck, and otherwise I had all of the cheap stuff just sitting in a deck box waiting to be played. Why would you ever ask somebody who wants to play a game, hey, I want you every month or so to spend the equivalent of a brand new video game to buy a single card, and you still don't get to play the deck yet. The deck will still not be functional yet. You still have to wait a few more months before the deck will be functional. And to argue that it shouldn't be something to complain about in a non-rotating format when Modern Horizons is on the horizon, and we have functional rotation coming in that format, and every single format for Magic the Gathering has a 3-month lifespan, where when a new set comes out that introduces new cards to the format, it can shake up the format to the point where the deck that you've been wanting to build is no longer viable. You're asking too much of players. You're asking far too much of your players. So again, I ask you, how in the balls do you get somebody to play Modern? Oh, I could get them a Tron deck. That's basically a budget deck in the format. That's going to cost you 2 Nintendo Switches. That's going to cost you 2 Nintendo Switches. Will you get 2 Nintendo Switches worth of entertainment out of Mono Green Tron? I don't know. You tell me. If I ask you to play Domain Zoo right now with your Scion of Dracos that have spiked up to $25 each, and your Leyline of the Guild packs, and everything else that's in the deck, are you going to get 3 Nintendo Switches of enjoyment out of that? If you're playing Yagi Combo, are you getting 3 Switches and a couple extra games worth of entertainment out of that right now? If you're playing Omnath, are you getting 4 car payments worth of entertainment out of a 5-color Omnath? I don't think you are. I really don't. Which is horrible for me to say, because I have spent that much money on my Modern deck. When Agatha Soul Cauldron came out, I had that sigh of, oh, well, I guess I now have to spend $140 on updating my deck that was complete, because that's the other thing. Even in a, quote, non-rotating format, it doesn't matter how long it takes somebody to build something, because there's always an extension on that time. There's always going to be something new that comes out in overpriced Wizards of the Coast product that is going to add an extension on there. Let's say you were almost finished building Mono Green Tron, and it was going to run you $600, and then the meta shifted, and now you need to get 4 One Rings for your Mono Green Tron, adding another $200 minimum to your purchase. Do you like that? Is that a thing you enjoy? And this is the kind of stuff that shifts people into Commander. This is the kind of stuff that makes people end up wanting to play exclusively Commander. Because in order to play a game of Commander, here's what is required of the average Magic the Gathering player, a newbie. And to say that, oh, well, new players shouldn't have all the best stuff when they begin. It's a game. Get over yourself. Every single one of you that has this elitist idea that we should not be allowing other players who come in to play on equal footing to us because we are the privileged ones that have bought the expensive cardboard. No, I have 2 decks built in Modern. I had 6 built in Pioneer. I deconstructed them because I wasn't able to play enough Pioneer to justify it. Actually, I had 3 in Modern. I deconstructed one of them. To say that Magic the Gathering players should just have to suck it up on the price of their cards is stupid to me. This is how we get people leaving competitive Magic and going into either casual Commander or playing other games that are easier to build decks in, like Pokemon. If I build a rotating deck in Magic the Gathering, that's going to cost me a Nintendo Switch. But if I want to build that in Pokemon, I can build Chime Pal for $30 and a Dream. So, and that's not me trying to say, like, oh, go just play Pokemon instead. Because I know there's going to be somebody in my comments that's like, well, if you want to talk up Pokemon, just go play it. No, I want to play Magic. The problem with playing Magic is it is a multiplayer game. And to play a multiplayer game, you need to get more people playing the game. And you know how you don't get more people playing the game? When you produce a product that is ostensibly for modern players, will cost you a Nintendo Switch worth of money and will not get you a playable deck. It won't. You can buy one of these boxes and you will not have a full deck. You can buy 3 of these boxes and you will not have a full deck, because that is how sealed product has always been designed. You can never and you will never be able to build enough of a deck off of a single booster pack set. And the problem is when you say, oh, well, people can just buy singles. I agree with you. They should buy singles. Why do you think I make deck videos where I talk about buying all the cards as singles? The problem is there should be another option to get people into the game. If you are a Magic the Gathering player, who is this set for? This is a set for modern players, right? That's what you'd think anyway. It's a set for modern players who play the modern format. But it's going to primarily have cards designed for Commander, and while it will shake up the modern format a lot, realistically, you're going to be spending a bunch of money on a lot of cards that you're never going to play. The set is going to be designed for drafting. A draft you may never be able to afford to play in, because instead of a draft costing you $15 to $20, a draft of this is going to cost you $50 to $60 at your local game store. That's almost guaranteed. Well, what if there are precons? Can we get precons with this? Well, no, we won't get precons with it. You can get a $300 collector's edition Magic the Gathering precon for Commander, though, with Modern Horizons 3. Why can you get this with Modern Horizons 3? Why does Modern Horizons 3 not have precons with it? Why do we not have precons for Standard? Why do we not have precons for Pioneer right now? Why do we not have precons for Modern? Why do we need so much Commander product? The Commander players are already playing Commander. Every other type of player of Magic the Gathering is getting a ton of product that Mark Rosewater has gone on record to say, well, maybe that product's just not for you. At a certain point, people are going to start asking themselves if Magic the Gathering is for them. Morrow. And I know it's not just a Morrow thing. I know it's not just a thing on any one designer of Wizards of the Coast. I know that the largest problem with this is with Hasbro, is with the mothership companies. This is the same issue that Nerf has dealt with. This is the same issue that Beyblade has dealt with. Hasbro is a common denominator problem, and they always will be. But I don't know how many times we can be told, maybe this product isn't for you, before eventually most of the product that is released in a given year is not for you, and eventually people start wondering if the game is for them anymore. And by the game, I mean everything that's not Commander, because of course, Commander can just support everything, I guess. I guess. But it can't. It can't. Because the design philosophy that is required to keep Commander going is different than the design philosophy that was used to keep Standard going. Have you wondered why there's so much power creep in the game now? Have you wondered why White now doesn't have any of the problems that it used to in terms of draw power and everything else? Like every joke we've made at the expense of the mono White Commander deck has basically been patched out by the production of cards like Trouble in Pairs. You know why that is? Because, well, everything is now designed for Commander. Every standard set we get is designed for Commander. Every deck we get is a Commander deck. Every product we get is either designed for Commander or is like the 30th anniversary edition where it's a set for nobody. There is no Magic the Gathering player on this earth for whom this product is for or was for. Celebrate 30 years of Magic the Gathering by spending $1,000 on proxies. And don't get me wrong, if we look at the standard sets, let's look at Karlov Manor. Karlov Manor, a set that is basically just what if the people in Ravnica all wore funny hats, because I guess we don't really care about our own lore anymore in Magic. We just kill off a whole bunch of characters in a single set, we abandon blocks, and now we're just kind of here. What was the asking price for Karlov Manor when it first came out? Oh, right, $160. Why for effectively draft boosters with an extra rare slot? Let's go ahead and call it what it is. Draft boosters with an extra rare slot. Why was the going price for Karlov Manor on day one $160? When boxes for Magic the Gathering have been slowly creeping up in price, but generally are about $90 to $100. And should have maintained that price for a while, but of course we don't get to have MSRP, so why should we get to have nice things at all, I suppose? So Karlov Manor gets to be here at $160 for what I don't know and for who I don't know, until finally it tanks down to about $100. And do you know who this actually hurts, right? This hurts your LGS. When these cards come out and they are expected to be at a huge price and then people do not buy the product, your LGS ends up having to slash the price on these cards, and now they don't make as much of a profit off of it. Now it's harder for them to justify buying this product. And now, yes, your LGS will have singles for sale, but fewer and fewer LGSs are going to even want to carry product that they do not know if they can sell. It used to be the case that any Magic the Gathering product that came from the mothership was guaranteed to sell in an LGS, and now there is not only so much product that is brought out from them that it's not a guarantee anymore, but so much of that product is aimed at different types of customers as opposed to the general Magic the Gathering player that stores end up just having boxes of like Strixhaven just kind of sitting around that nobody wants to buy packs from. And this is a consistent problem at a bunch of LGSs. And the solution to this should be for Wizards of the Coast to slow down their product, their booster pack product, and to release entry points for other formats. Create an environment where you don't have the modern player, the pioneer player, the standard player. Create an environment where when the year comes around, during the first quarter of the year, there are standard decks that are printed for people who wish to have an onboard into standard. And then in the middle part of the year, during quarter two, you have pioneer decks that are printed so that people have an onboarding into pioneer. And you don't have to do the whole 4-deck thing, but if you want to do the whole 4-deck thing, then sure, we'll go for it. And then during the latter half of the year, go ahead in quarter three, print your modern decks. And then in quarter four, print your big commander set like you used to. If they still want to print, 2 precons per every set, I don't think players are going to be upset about that. Having 2 commander precons that are really good to play every single time a new set comes out, I don't think that's a thing that people have a problem with now. I mean, now it's like 4 precons every set again, and I don't know when that changed or why. Like, I thought that was an Ixalan thing, and now it's a Karlov Manor thing, and it's also a Modern Horizons thing, and we're just going to keep on having these extra things. And maybe instead of spending R&D time on 4 commander decks every single time a new set comes out, when you have 5 to 8 sets coming out every year, spend some time making precons for Modern, spend some time making precons for Pioneer, spend some time making precons for Standard. Mark Rosewater has tried to say that the reason they don't do this is because they would have to print the decks at a price point higher than what players would accept. And I'm just going to go ahead and call bullshit on that one, too. I hate to lump this all at Morrow's feet. That's not fair to him. He's in a position where there are investors breathing down his neck every single day, and I can understand that being a huge issue. But from the perspective of a player who wants to be able to play Standard with people but has no people in Standard to play with, wants to be able to play Modern with people but has no people in Modern to play with outside of, like, my core group, wants to be able to play Pioneer and has the exact same problem. The only thing that I really get to play outside of traveling specifically an hour and a half to particular places that maybe have tournaments running for it is Commander. So when Mark Rosewater says that they cannot make precons for Modern, Pioneer, etc., because they would have to put them at such a price point that players wouldn't accept it, do you print this shit with special ink? Like, I want to understand, in what world does it cost you somehow more to print a deck like this? Why does Wizards of the Coast think that they should be scaling the price of things with the power that they are at? The price per power where cards are concerned should be an entirely secondary market thing, where a card like, say, Agatha's Soul Cauldron is recognized to be super powerful in multiple formats, in multiple decks, so the card's price goes up. Not Wizards of the Coast prints a product that has Agatha Soul Cauldron, so they increase the price of the product, knowing that it has a thing players are going to want to seek out. That just feels incredibly predatory. Again, how many Nintendo Switches do you have to shove into a deck box before you're getting the right amount of fun out of that deck? I know it's a huge rant, and it's probably been beaten to death by the Magic community, but I just have to wonder, who is this game actually for? Because for the longest time, it has felt like Wizards of the Coast made the game for their players. We had entry points into Standard, we had some entry points into Pioneer, we haven't really had much success with entry points into Modern, but come on, they're the design team. They should be able to figure this one out. It can't be that hard. But more and more it's feeling like, with the rate of power creep and with the inability apparently to support any other format that is not the one that is printing them all the money in the entire world, this isn't a game for us, this is a game for Hasbro. This is a game to line Hasbro's pocket. And there should be a middle ground there, where Hasbro is making profits and we as players are happy with the game the way it's being ran. Instead, it seems like one of those scales is tipping infinitely higher than the other, and I'm not super comfortable with that. Honestly, the best thing we can do as individual people, like, if voting with your dollars doesn't really work, I'm sorry, but there are whales, and whales as a concept kind of defeats the purpose of voting with your dollars. But we do have the ability to, instead of buying sealed product when it comes out, supporting our local game stores with the thing that they get the highest margins on, which is their singles. Spending money on singles at your LGS to build your decks and not buying the sealed product the Wizards of the Coast is constantly pushing over and over and over for no good reason will lead to situations where you get more Murders at Karlov Manor coming out at lower prices. And there's only so long that this particular thing can happen before Wizards starts to see the writing on the wall. Now, my worry is that the writing on the wall they're going to see is to discontinue product for Standard players, like they apparently were going to discontinue product for the draft environment. And I know that we've had assurances that nobody really wanted to end draft product, but I can't trust that, and I don't think anybody else here can trust that either. I love this game. I've loved it since I was a kid. Even when I had my hiatus from it for a long time, I've still enjoyed it during that time, enjoying hearing about it, enjoying talking about it, enjoying reminiscing about playing the game when I wasn't able to play multiple card games at once due to financial reasons. and I want to continue loving this game. I want to continue making content about this game. But more and more it feels like it's going to be harder to do that with Wizards doing the things that they're doing. I want to make some content on Modern, but I don't know who the hell that content would be for. I want to make content on Pioneer, but again, I don't know who the hell that content would be for. And because of how restricted those formats are anyway, there's only so many deck builds I can show you guys in those formats anywho. But I don't know. This has been a huge rant. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I want to know what y'all's thoughts are. As always, insert end of video tagline here. Hey, I just quickly want to give a thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who keep this show running. YouTube and Twitch are a pretty bumpy ride at the best of times, and the stability a Patreon provides me is worth more than I can say here. I'd also like to thank each and every one of my $20 and up patrons here, and they would be Red Joker, Blitzkrieg, Cameron, Dren, Jemshin, Smiling DM, Poundini, Mabbity Babbity, Naomi, Isaac, Nixie Chan, the Oberon team, Agamotto, Jordan, Ravi, Giuni, Kiratorian, Prisma, all of you, I'm not saying that part, and Starlight. And finally, thank you to everyone else that helps keep this channel alive. While you're here, why not check out another video? And thank you for watching.